Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Wandering Road podcast. I'm your host Chris, alongside my co-host Dean, and today's episode is going to be a little bit different. We dubbed this one our paranormal shitbag part 1. No, I got to redo
Yeah.
that. I got to redo
No,
that.
that's good. That dude, keep it in, man. That's good. A little bit
It
of
sounds
friendly
so
banter. It's
it-
no, it's colloquial.
okay.
We're
Okay.
having fun today. We're
Yeah.
gonna try something a little bit different. If you don't like it, you can skip, or you can if you like our stupid banter, then please enjoy. But it is a shit bag, like Chris said. We got some, I think, interesting topics. We have been getting more comfortable talking to each other about these sorts of things, and we think that there might be an audience for that. Like if you want to hear us talk about this sort of thing and then even like write in.
Yeah, because normally our normal episode setup is we either have a guest or we pick a dedicated topic. But before we started the show, there were a few topics that we floated around, some things that are recent, relevant, like the UFO crap. Anytime that happens, we like to talk about that. But there are a few topics that you couldn't really dedicate a full episode to. So I
Yeah.
figured, why don't we take the time and just cover topic to topic
Yeah.
and, just discuss them. I think it would be fun. I know some of our friends over at the Paranormal Rundown, that is their format. Vic and guys, if you're listening to this episode, you have inspired us for today's episode. So thank you for that. And we have also been on the Paranormal Rundown. So go ahead and give them a follow and check out their episodes. They're actually pretty cool. They cover some interesting topics. And I think Vic has I don't know. I think they're like at 3,000 topics to choose from now. So we
Wow.
don't have that many at the moment to select from for today. But dude, before we go into anything, today of recording is November 15th. It is my birthday. I
Happy
am
birthday.
now 34 years old.
Ooh.
And there's something even more important happening tonight. Jake Paul and Mike Tyson are fighting. And I
Yeah.
hope Mike Tyson takes his fucking head off.
You hope. Is this the great battle of like the older generation versus the younger generation? Like this is going to set off the next like physical conflict between the boomers and the millennials or whatever. Like I think that's what people are seeing like deep down, even if you don't want to admit it. That's really what this fight is about. It's about an old dude who is past his prime, but when he was in his prime, he rocked the shit out of everything against a guy who, all reasonable expectations, and he's basically really fit. I mean, Jake Paul, whatever you think
He's
about him,
really fit, but he has not fought a real
no skill.
boxer.
Yeah,
I mean, he
exactly.
fought
So that's
Tyson Fury's brother, who
right,
is, I would consider a real boxer, but that's the only one.
right.
Like everybody
Yeah.
else has been like retired UFC fighters. To be honest, they're close to 50, if not in their 50s. And it's like, you're 27, dude. You're in your 20s and you're fighting dudes that are like almost 30 years older than you. Like, fight
Yeah,
a
this is,
professional boxer. But with Mike Tyson, it's a little bit different because if you watch his training videos, that dude's, oh my God.
I know he's and what is he now? 58?
Yeah, he's 58.
58, and like he still has muscle mass and moves with this vigor that is just unreal for that age to me. And it kind of gives me some hope, like we're still in our 30s, and like I'm not in the shape we're both not in the shape we want to be in. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe if Mike Tyson, who I know I'm not fucking Mike Tyson, but like maybe there's some wiggle room for us to grow into and get some strength going. But like he's just nuts, man. Like I would never want to go up against even Mike Tyson in his like 70s. I've seen old men, like when I worked in a hospital, I've seen old men take swings and like handle people when they're belligerent, and they are fucking strong, man. So like I wouldn't, even if Mike Tyson was like 70, he would probably eviscerate someone with a punch.
Yeah, listeners. So at the time of recording, the fight has not happened yet. So whenever this records, obviously it'll be post fight. So hopefully, I hope Mike Tyson wins, but let's see what happens. But for our first topic today, what happened this week, Dean? So our first topic of discussion today, Dean, it's one of our favorite topics. We used to get plastered and talk about this back in the day, and we did that for a couple of episodes. What has the news got for us this week?
Yeah, the UFOs, they're underwater and they're back. They're back underwater. They keep coming from underwater. I guess the aliens like chilling underneath the ocean better than they do going out into space and hiding behind the moon. That's just a joke. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, apparently they like to hang out in the water. I don't know why. Maybe they're a bunch of Selkath from Star Wars. If anyone played the Knights of the Old Republic, it's those like weird fish-looking guys. But anyways, maybe 2% of our listeners would get that fucking reference. But yes, so there was another U.S. House Oversight Committee hearing about, what do they call it this time? Unidentified anomalous phenomenon,
Oh,
UAPs.
UAP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what do they have to call them now? Because they go underwater. USOs, unidentified
Yeah,
submerged objects.
USO has been around longer than UAP. We talked about this like a long time ago on another episode, and we had looked up why they replaced UAP with or UFO with UAP, and there's like kind of some technical explanation. I think it's because UFO implies that's what it is. UFO implies that it's a physical object that actually has mass and substance to it. And by saying UAP, you're just talking about aerial phenomenon that does not necessarily include physical objects. So like weird random lights in the sky and actual natural phenomena that occurs in nature, that also might be part of the I don't know, it kind of seems like a misdirection-ish change, but it might just be like a encompassing thing. But this one is we're talking about is specifically underwater, which like I actually thought USOs for years were the more interesting ones because the one thing that blows my mind about them, and I'll tell you more a story about this in a second that someone told me, but one crazy aspect about USOs is that whenever people do witness them and claim they see them, they seamlessly travel between or the water and the air. And basically, if you think about the physics required for that, you're essentially displacing the mass of the water instantaneously. Because if you hit, like everyone knows, if you jump from a high spot, there's going to be a point from which you jump where the water, when you hit it, becomes like concrete because the mass and the force is being canceled out by the fluidity of the water. So it's basically like a hard substance when it comes in fast. So these USOs, like they go in and out super fast and they do it so quickly that it's not having any damage or effect on the water whatsoever. So that's the most strange and interesting aspect to me. And then really quickly, I know I'm going off again. I promise I won't go off for very long. I talked to a dude in the Navy not long ago. And this guy, he was in the Navy for, I think he was like in for 20 years or something, a long time. And
In for
he was in
20
the
years.
Navy.
You made it sound like he was in prison.
Yeah, well, what's the difference? Well, no, that's what I hear from them. Sometimes it's a joke. It's not that bad, but it can get bad sometimes. But this guy in the Navy spent, I think, most of his career on a ship. And I don't know if it was a carrier or it was basically maybe it was like a destroyer or something, like a larger ship. And he had like I asked him about it one time and I'm like, "Hey, by the way, have you ever seen a UFO like or a USO?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, absolutely." He's like he didn't even hesitate. And this dude is like he's respected, he's smart. He doesn't talk random stories, like he's got the credibility completely. There would be no reason for him to make the story up in that situation, not even to get attention. But he didn't even hesitate. He's like, "Absolutely. We saw them en masse all the time." He said, like, at nighttime, if you were out on watch or, like, if you were out on the deck at nighttime, especially if it was late at night and you could see, like, miles and miles, there was just water, just black, glassy water and stars in the sky. And he would talk about I think he said one time the craziest experience he had witnessed was a light traveling underwater, like off to the I think it was he said it was the port side of the ship, the left side of the ship. So he watched this light travel maybe like a quarter, half a mile away from the ship, and it's going underwater at a rapid speed, which by the way, he mentioned there's no technology, even the adversaries that we know of that can have like that would even have a light on. There'd be no reason for an adversary, even if they had technology that can travel that fast underwater, there'd be no reason for them to have a light on. So the light's going underwater, and then suddenly he said after it gets like a mile or two past the back left port or the port side of the ship, it just suddenly exits the water and goes straight up at an angle, and then it just disappears in like into the depth of the sky. But he said it wasn't going like lightning fast, but it was going fast enough where it's like anything that that goes from the water to the sky like that is not man-made, or if it is, it's like highly, highly classified or secret. So I don't even know like what that means, but like that's just there's got to be something to that. I mean, there clearly is something to it.
No, I agree. And apparently, going back to the 1490s with Christopher Columbus, apparently in his logs, he has documented seeing those lights multiple times on his voyages to and from the Caribbean. So it's not like this is new. This is something that has been documented through for centuries, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that gets me is that, okay, they're underwater. Apparently, we've had contact with them. Apparently, we have biologics, which I don't know what that means. I know what it means, but in the sense that, do we have full specimens? Do we have like a finger? Like,
Yeah.
what do they mean by biologics? I don't see. I find this stuff fascinating, but I fall in the camp of, okay, this is fine, but do I have to go into work tomorrow? If I do, then I really don't give a shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's where we're at. I mean, yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
How many times do they have to come out and have these fucking hearings until they just disclose everything? Like, what is it going to fucking take for them to not to realize that people aren't fucking stupid? Well, that's debatable.
What's the quote? A person is smart, but people are stupid, or something like that.
I don't know.
It's
But
basically it's like, when you're by yourself and you're thinking in your own head, like you probably have some pretty smart thoughts, but when you start moving with the masses, the masses do some pretty dumb things.
yeah, I think apparently Alexander Hamilton was credited with saying the masses are asses. So I
That's
get
an
it.
even better one. Yeah.
I get it. But at a certain point with this whole disclosure and these freaking hearings, apparently there's underwater bases. They've been around for centuries. We have biologics. What I would like to come out of these stupid hearings. At first they were exciting over the summer. I think it was last summer we covered this quite a bit. We did a couple episodes on that. And it's just the same thing. Like, I get it. You have key witnesses. You have former Department of Defense official. You have retired Navy Rear Admiral. You have a former NASA associate. You have, you know, credible journalists and, whistleblowers. You have all of these credible people coming out saying these things. But it's like, you know what? Just disclose the damn evidence.
Yeah.
What could possibly happen? We've already seen how the public has reacted to this news. I don't understand what the difference would be if they'd be like, okay, you're right. You're right. There is something. We have been in contact with them. We have reverse engineered stuff. If this was 30 years ago, yeah, I could see pandemonium. I could see people freaking out.
Yeah.
But we've been so desensitized to this shit with our media, with our video games, and everything of that sort. It'd be like, finally, can we talk to them?
This is why I love talking about this topic about UFOs. And we're going to have to reel ourselves in because we're probably going to repeat a lot of the same shit we talked about in previous episodes. But I don't care. Like, I love speculating on this stuff and I love saying it out loud, even if it's multiple times, because it's so true. Like desensitization, sorry, is essentially like what you said has been happening for years. I think it's mostly unintentional, but I do think that it's a benefit to the holders of the secrets of this information because, like, exactly your point, whenever disclosure happens or if there's some kind of piece of information that comes out or there's some kind of hearing, your question is probably the average question that most people will ask inside their head, like, oh, that's cool, that's interesting, but okay, I got to go to work, because everybody is already exposed to that. But if you go back to like the 90s or even the 80s and earlier, I remember in the 90s, like, people would always get the air would get so heavy when you talk about aliens. Like, it was so mysterious and like, what does the government know? And they're not saying anything. And there's just like little sightings and leaks here and there. Like, we talked to people from MUFON and back in the days where that was really hitting its height. And now it's like what you said, it's just like no one gives a shit. And it's because years and years just desensitization to where the times have changed. The ethos and the view on UFOs has changed completely. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if UFO disclosure happened in like the next, I would say it's probably a little whiles away, like maybe 10 or 20 years. I think it'd be really funny. What if AI came along, like got consciousness, like 10 years from like 5, 10 years from now, AI achieves consciousness, then AI starts inadvertently dismantling portions of our grid systems or communications networks or something, whatever, worldwide, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. And then suddenly aliens come down and they just like, we'll save you. And then boom. And then triple twist, after they take out AI, they enslave us. How do you like that? There you go.
I'm
That's our
fine with it.
new. Yeah, no, you're not.
Whatever.
That would suck, man.
Are we gonna be
That would be
taken to another planet?
no. We'll probably
Yeah.
be enslaved here to
Oh,
mine something.
look, whatever.
Aliens, sex
I saw this.
slaves?
Are they sexy?
No, they are not.
Okay, then never mind.
Oh,
Just blast me with a plasma rifle or something.
they'll blast you with some kind of plasma rifle.
Okay. No, thank you. I'm gonna pass on that. Oh God, you saying that reminds me of that fucking guy. There's like this documentary. I think he's like an artist now. His name's like Richard Huggins or something. He has this elaborate story that like he fucked alien women
Oh, I
from
remember.
like
That's
the
an old
age
story.
16.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And he
Okay.
has
Yeah.
like
I don't give that.
pictures. Like,
Oh my god. No, I don't know credibility for that one.
like what?
But dude, real quick, that's all you have to do. If you want to take over the human race, just create a situation in which they have no need to leave their apartment or their place, and boom. You give them unlimited pleasure, unlimited sustenance, and you're not gonna have to worry about anyone coming outside ever again, and you just defeated the human race.
It'll just be like Wally. We'll all be super fat on those floating
Hmm.
devices.
Yeah.
Such a good movie, by the way. Oh, one
Yeah.
last thing on aliens. I know, listeners, took an unserious approach to this topic, but it is what it is. We kind of needed this today, to be honest with
Yeah,
you, with the past
it's a fun one. Yeah.
few weeks at work and life and shit. But I saw this one reel where it was like an alien underwater, and the fish are talking, and they're like, "Who's that?" And it was like, "In the club, we're all fam."
In the club.
We're all
Up in the
fam.
club.
You have anything else to add with this whole recent UAP hearing? I
It doesn't sound like they said anything different from the other big hearing that happened like a
other
year or
than
two ago
other
or a
than the
year ago.
fact that they're underwater now. There's
Yeah.
underwater bases.
Did they say that though? Or did they just like hint that they just kept saying what they said before, which is we have some evidence?
I guess it was part of the discussion or some shit like that.
Yeah.
But the fact is that they're saying like they're going in and out of the water. And
Yes.
Columbus has
Yeah.
a record on his like travel logs that he saw stuff like that. And he
I,
said
yeah.
it resembled, I believe, like a menorah. And he got questioned by the
Uh,
Spanish Inquisition about that. They're like, "Why did you say that?"
he's
If
trying
you
to
go
start a
watch
meme for Jewish meme. Yeah.
if you go watch I forget what episode of Ancient Aliens it was. So that probably even takes away all the credibility from it. But I enjoy that show. It's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. We used to watch that back in college and drink, if you
Yeah.
remember. But in one of the early episodes, I think it might have been the first or second season, they talk about Christopher Columbus's journey log. And he talks about those lights. He said how it resembled like a Jewish menorah. And when he got back to Spain, the Inquisition questioned him about it because the Inquisition, it speaks for itself. If you were a non-Catholic Christian, the Inquisition didn't like you. So yeah, they'd found any reason to go after people. But anyways, that's all I have on this whole UAP stuff. It's not
I,
exciting to me anymore until they like bring one of them to a hearing. Be like, yep, right here.
I will make one more observation real quick, and it's something I haven't spoke of or thought about before. It's kind of just sparked in my mind now. But if you think about, you know me, if you've been listening to this show for a while, you know that I'm very logically inclined and like I think kind of like analytically too deeply. It's not a good thing to think like that all the time, but if I'm thinking about the situation, I'm wondering what's the motivation and reasoning why something would be entering and exiting the ocean. And I don't know, you can probably come up with anything. But at the end of the day, what it really comes down to, like whether there's a base down there where they rest or they do some studies or they need to go somewhere physically underwater to inhabit, whether it's that or if they're just collecting energy from the water to fuel their ship or whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. What matters is there is some intelligent, non-human intelligence that is driving it. If it is really true that it's aliens or extraterrestrials, there's non-human intelligence driving it, and they're probably way smarter than us, and they probably have different emotions, different needs. They might not even need to eat food the same way we do. But if you think about it, those things that are driving it are somewhere. And if I had to speculate, knowing what I know about modern technology and how far we've come as humans, even in like the last 20 years, I would guess that it would make no sense for an insanely advanced race to travel the universe or inhabit a world and travel around it unsafely, where it's their actual physical body, their biologics, like as they call it, the biological bodies inhabiting these ships. I would guess that if you were so advanced as a society or as a race, you would choose not to send your own life ending, like if you'd lost your body, it's, you know, your mind is gone, like you're just forever gone. If you had the technology to avoid that, why would you not just either put your consciousness into something else that could return to your original body or something else, like, you know, a computer system? Or why would you not just have it where it's a remote control device, where that's actually a theory that people have talked about before with aliens, is maybe the way that they travel such long distances over such long periods of time is that they're actually like robotic or some kind of like non, like that's not the body that the brain had evolved in, and the brain is being projected into that body. So if that body dies, you still have the brain or whatever's being transmitted really far away that's driving it. I would think that that's the case for these ships. But then, like you said, with these meetings and hearings, they're claiming that they have biologics, which, you know, that sounds to me like there's some kind of natural tissue or something like that. So I could be completely wrong, but that's just, you know, I got to make that observation because maybe someone will find it interesting. Maybe someone will want to come on and talk about it even more. But that's my 2 cents. The last bit for the USO stuff.
I'm just not excited about it anymore. I need to see
Over it.
something. I
Yeah.
need to see a ship. I need to see part of a ship. I need to see some sort of technology in action. So get your asses in gear with that shit, man.
Show
Enough of
me
these.
the cube, Lars.
Yeah,
That
you
was
know
my
what would be
really
even
bad.
better if
Yeah.
the Borg just showed up.
The
Just bring the
Borg.
Borg in. All right, man. For our next topic that we have lined up for today, this topic was actually suggested to us earlier this week by one of our listeners, Rodrigo.
Thanks, Rodrigo.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man. And we appreciate you emailing us. And our topic of discussion is the Black Bird of Chernobyl. Rodrigo did suggest a second topic for us to discuss as well. But I think that one will have to be a separate episode on its own about Jose Maria Miculax. I don't know if I pronounced the last name right, but it's the first reported Guatemalan serial killer who terrorized
Yeah.
children in the mid 1940s. So,
Oh God.
teaser
Anything to
episode.
do with like
Teaser.
oh man, I don't know if I can handle that. You had me with Guatemalan serial killer, but then as soon as you said kids, I'm like, ah shit, I don't want to talk about that.
Dude, it's going to
Just wait till
be.
you're a dad, you'll understand.
Dude, it's gonna be just as bad whenever we cover like Richard Ramirez or somebody like that.
Yeah.
So,
But at least Ramirez, I mean, he did heinous stuff, but at least he left the kids alive. You know what I mean?
no, he didn't.
Yeah.
He
Ramirez,
killed kids, didn't he?
no, the guy you're talking about, Ramirez is the California killer, right? That snuck into
Yeah, the
people's
Night
houses.
Stalker.
He would take the kids from their home and then he would return them to their home and tell them, "Don't tell anybody that I did this." So he I don't think he ever killed kids. I could be wrong though. I might be thinking of someone else.
Oh, damn. Oh,
Anyway.
okay. But again, thank you. Thanks, Rodrigo, for shooting us an email. So,
Yeah.
again, listeners, if you have any topics that you would like for us to discuss, we are open to suggestions. So, the topic that we are going to discuss, as suggested by Rodrigo today, is the Black Bird of Chernobyl. Have you ever heard of that one?
I have not, and I just did some research on it too, and it seems it's being compared to Mothman, which we've talked about before. That's pretty interesting.
Absolutely. So that's why I was kind of excited to talk about this one for a little bit. So apparently, the Black Bird of Chernobyl is one of the urban legends that's tied to the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. And if anyone's not familiar with that, the nuclear
Yeah.
disaster took place on April 26th, 1986, in Pripyat, Ukraine. Reactor 4 had an explosion, and apparently, several workers at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant and residents of Pripyat reported encounters with a dark, ominous figure in the skies before the disaster. Those who saw the creature also claimed to have experienced nightmares, disturbing phone calls, and a sense of impending doom in the days before the explosion. The sightings and strange occurrences reportedly ceased right after the explosion, as if the creature vanished into thin air. One thing that catches me there, disturbing phone calls. Like, is this fucking Mothman type creature calling people? Be like, crazy shit's gonna happen on April 26th.
What's funny about that is, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like this apparently happened in the days leading up to Chernobyl. But what's interesting, I would guess, is that people weren't reporting these sightings before Chernobyl in the same way that people weren't reporting, or in the different, sorry, in the different way that people were reporting sightings of the Mothman before the Silver Bridge collapse. So, if you ever seen the Mothman prophecies, I think it was like with Richard Gere or something. I actually like
Yeah.
I I really like that movie. Like I thought that was a really creepy, like a well done creepy movie. Even though it's much much older. I think it was made in the 90s or released in the 90s. But in that movie, they have a portrayal of the Mothman or whatever this thing is calling the main character and other people and like staticky weird voices and stuff like that. And what's interesting is this Chernobyl experience happened well after, I think, well after the Mothman sightings, right? When did the
Yeah, because
Mothman stuff happen again?
The Mothman stuff was in 1967.
Wow, was it really that long ago? Yeah, you're right. Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
can't believe
This
it was
was
that long ago.
Chernobyl was in 86.
Yeah, that's I mean, I guess it could be, it could be a copycat thing where people just are associating a terrible experience where people had their lives ruined or worse. Maybe people are projecting this because it already happened in America and the story was already known. But I don't know. Like, what's your take on it? What do you think is going on here? Do you think it's actually a thing?
Maybe the Mothman went to take a European trip and realized something was going wrong and try to warn people.
I think what's more likely is that Chernobyl is, I mean, it's like it's out there, right? It's like out in the outskirts of like a rural area. So, or whenever it was thriving. And I mean, I guess you could not really argue that this was some kind of mutated creature because Chernobyl didn't happen yet. Like all the mutations that actually did happen to the creatures around that area took place in the years preceding or proceeding the Chernobyl event, the meltdown. But also in the same way, I think one of the explanations or theories for the Mothman was like, oh, there was like an old ammo dump, or there was like an old ammunition manufacturing, there's something to do with ammunition, like military grade ammunition being developed or stored near Point Pleasant. That's, some people speculate that that's how this creature mutated from something else, but that doesn't really address the supernatural phenomena like the calls and the other weird experiences that people have had. So this sounds like a pretty interesting copycat, but it could be true.
So there have been possible explanations put forward about the uh, Black Bird of Chernobyl. Some skeptics say that it's bird misidentification. They suggest that the blackbird could have been a misidentified black stork, which is a large bird native to the region. Black storks are rare, but can appear ominous, especially in low light. So, depending on the time of day where these people are seeing this blackbird, the lighting effect could have made it seem more ominous or something cryptid or paranormal. Another one, so this kind of irritates me when they say mass hallucination or trauma.
Yeah.
That's so for this one, they say the lead up to the Chernobyl disaster was filled with anxiety and confusion, which may have heightened senses of those involved. And the psychological strain could have led to shared hallucinations or exaggerated memories. Okay, I get that to a certain point, but to me, that's kind of disingenuous. Would that be the word? You're
Yeah, like kinda
basically
writing it off.
calling, yeah, you're writing it off. You're calling everybody in the area fucking crazy, basically. Like, you could have had
Yeah.
some random dude that saw the thing, has no mental issues, no mental instabilities, has no hallucinations, but then all of a sudden he's just gonna hallucinate this fucking giant Mothman equivalent
Right.
at the same time as everybody else.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a little bit strange, right? Yeah.
yeah, that irritates the fuck out of me. When people's like, "Oh, it's just hallucination." No, you're just a fucking asshole with no critical thinking skills.
Why when, like, whenever you whenever you said that, I just pictured, like, an old gray bearded professor type guy in, like, one of those coats with, like, the patches on on the elbow, and he's holding a pipe, and he's like, "Oh, it's just mass hysteria." Just like,
Yeah,
you just
yeah,
get
just mass hysteria.
while you were talking about this, and I don't think I brought this up during our Mothman episode, I might be wrong, I may have, but I completely forgot until we just started talking that when I was how old was I? I think it was
Just a wee Mothman lad.
no, 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 I wasn't that yeah, I wasn't that young. I remember I had a car at this point, so I must have been 16,
This
maybe
wasn't the time you
17?
drove to Ohio with your fucking windows down in the middle of the night, was
No,
it?
no, 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 that boring story where I heard, like, the grunt from the side, like, yeah, that was
Yeah.
scary, but I'm
Oh,
pretty
that
sure
was
that
the
was just
goat man looking for you.
yeah, that was the goat either goat man or deer. I'll go with deer. I'll go with the angry grunting deer. But this one was in my hometown and it was actually like dusk. It wasn't even it was pretty much like dark, but it wasn't quite night dark, but it was like almost it was like a hair after dusk. And we used to go, everybody used to do this probably in small towns. We used to go on these food runs. We would go to like our local 7-Eleven or Sheets. I don't know if you guys are listening to this and you're not from the east upper northeast coast, if you don't know what Sheets is, it's like a Wawa. If you don't know what Wawa is, it's like, I don't know.
Then I
What
know,
else
no,
is there?
you need to go be cultured. I'm kidding.
It
I'm
yeah,
kidding.
okay. No, it's I know. It's a 7-Eleven basically, but it's on the East Coast, and it was really great, like, best sandwiches when I was growing up, man, oh my god. We went to this, local 7-Eleven. I had just one friend and weirdly enough, I didn't really hang out with this one friend, like, we always got along, but we never hung out that much, so I went with this, friend of mine to 7-Eleven, and as we were coming out of the store, I was walking to I don't remember if it was my car or his car, but I was walking around the side of the car and he was walking towards me, like behind me, coming after me. So he was still facing the car. And as I was turning around the side of the car to like face the store again, like face the car, face the store, caught something out of the corner of my eye while we were talking and then about to get in the car. And it was this, I look up and it was this huge, I don't know how far away, but it was a massive winged animal. I remember to that day, like to this, well, I've seen huge birds after that, but until that time, till like, 16 years of life in that small town, I had never seen something with a wingspan that big. It literally only lasted like maybe 4 or 5 seconds in the sky because it was coming from behind me like a tree line and it was breaching the tree line over the store. And then there was another tree line not far away in my field of vision, like behind the store. And I looked at it, I was like probably flabbergasted for like a couple seconds because I was like, holy shit, that's huge. By the time I thought to say to my friend, dude, fucking turn around, look up, what is that? By the time he turns around and looks up, it's over the tree or behind the tree, the second tree line. And I still can see it in my head. I guess it could have, I don't know if there are cranes in Western Pennsylvania. There probably are. If it was a crane, it was a bigger type, like it was a bigger size crane because that MFer's wingspan was massively huge. Kind of a stupid story, but it's interesting because it kind of ties in with, the idea that there could be some kind of winged creature flying around that's massive that we don't know about.
You ready for me to be the asshole?
Go ahead.
Sand hill cranes are present in Western Pennsylvania, and their
That's cool. Okay,
numbers
but
are increasing.
what's the wingspan though?
The wingspan of a
Yeah.
sandhill crane? All right, let's find out.
By the way, while he's looking this up, anyone listening, I am not saying that I think it was like Mothman. I'm just saying that I had never seen anything with that wingspan so big. So it could
Five
have
and a
been.
half Okay, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
So
between five
five
and a
and a half.
half and 6.5 feet. For our
Okay.
European listeners, that's 1.8 to 2.0 meters.
That is huge. I don't know though. You see, like 5 feet in my memory, I think that thing had bigger than a 5 foot wingspan. That's why I said maybe it was like a larger crane. Could have been. I would guess like 6 feet is what I saw, which it sounds to me like it's not unheard of that a bird like a crane could have a wingspan that large. So sorry, that's a
I mean, the
boring
thing I
story.
mean, it's
Could have been.
maybe you could have possibly have seen something.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I'm
don't know.
not
It was really
denying that.
cool. Yeah, I'm not saying I did. It's just really, it was a really crazy experience because like whenever you see something that you've never seen before, it doesn't matter if it's explainable or not. It's still kind of interesting. So, have you ever like seen anything like that before, like in the sky, like other than your UFO experience?
No, I can't say that I have.
Okay, we've done the giant flying creatures to death. Let's
But wait.
okay. What you got?
The
What you got?
last explanation is our favorite government cover-up.
Okay.
Okay,
Always
here's the thing, here's the
blame the
thing, here's the
government.
thing.
Yeah.
If there was nothing to it, why would there be a government cover-up?
Yeah.
Not
So
saying
wait,
there
what's the
was one for this, but I'm just
Oh,
saying, like, a
okay.
possible they're like, "Oh, there was something and the government covered it up," type of thing.
What what if Chernobyl was the cover up? Wouldn't that
To
be
kill
terrible?
the fucking blackbird thing?
Yeah, I don't know, like, that's terrible. I don't think that's what happened at all, but I'm just saying, like, if you were thinking about a really comical or, really stupid concept for a book, it's like the government would be like, "Hmm, we have to get rid of this, mysterious flying creature that we can't explain. How do we get rid of it? Well, we can't catch it. Let's just, nuke the area.
Nuke it.
Let's just blow up the area," and then they tried to blow up Chernobyl, and that's why, we have Chernobyl today.
That would be really shitty if that, like, leaked somehow.
No,
Damn.
no one would believe it anyway. I mean, like
No,
anything
I
that
don't think
leaks
so.
nowadays, like think about anything that leaks nowadays is explainable. You could just explain it away by pulling a certain political technique that we've been seeing for the last few years, where you just just call it a lie. Yeah, it's just a lie. It's
Hey,
just
do
all
your
you have to do in
research.
society. Yeah, like even if you do your research nowadays, it's irrelevant. Have you ever? This is my. You get pissed off at stuff and you bring it up on the podcast. This is my turn, real quick.
Okay.
I could hear Everyone is fast forwarding this part. Have you ever tried to talk to somebody and you and I, like we're academics, we've done that, but we don't flaunt it, right? Like we're not like pompous about it, but we
Just
do
with
ask
you.
for just with me. You
Yeah.
can call me an asshole, a dumbass. You dumbass. You should have like you don't know anything about history. But we like listen, like I think that a lot of people who are like this, I should say, have this idea that if you spent any serious time studying academically, you're automatically pompous if you try to bring some kind of counter argument or whatever like empirical data or evidence or studies or whatever into the conversation. And the thing that gets me nowadays is if you try to talk to somebody about what is like a factual, like you spent a chunk of your life researching deeply and trying to understand the concepts that you're explaining to them, and you're giving them like historical narratives and a really good explanation that's coherent and well thought out, like well worded and articulate, and then they're just like, I don't believe that. Like have you ever come across somebody like that where they're just like they literally just say, I
Yeah.
don't believe that, and you're
Yeah.
like, "What do you mean you don't believe it?" Like, you could literally go look it up and, like, actually grasp it with your mind if you just take, like, 30 minutes of your time. Take 30 minutes of your time to go read some articles and look at the peer review. You can understand that people have peer reviewed it across the globe and, like, yes, it's accurate. Like, that's all you have to do, but it's just, like, this lazy concept where it's like, "Meh, all I have to do is not believe it and, just believe what I wanna believe." And then that's the kind of like uber fucked up society I feel like we live in nowadays. What a crazy tangent. Sorry.
No, it's relevant because that shit happens with people that share their stories all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here goes, you know what? I'm gonna fucking do it.
Okay, let's
I'm
do it.
gonna I'm gonna bitch about that because it's relevant to paranormal and it's relevant to, people sharing their stories. a while ago, we got some sort of thing basically calling someone's story bullshit. And it was like, you know, why don't you just keep that shit to yourself? There was something that somebody went through that they talked about. And like people are just quick to dismiss that shit. And it fucking baffles my mind all the time. It just fucking baffles me all the time. Like, okay, you don't have to believe them, but the way that someone speaks and they convey something, you can immediately tell who is bullshitting and who is not.
Right.
And not
Yeah.
only do we see that dismissive type of thing throughout the world today, that dismissive attitude, you see it within this community as well. More so from the listeners, not our listeners, I would say, but more so from people that consume the content. Like I get it's, there are skeptics, there are people like that all the time, but you have the people that are just like outright rude about it, I'm like, there's no fucking reason to do that. Like, there have been multiple times I've listened to so many paranormal shows and I listen to someone's story and I'm like, I snap my finger and I'm like, bullshit. I don't believe it, but I'm not going to take the time to go and like, verbally attack them.
Yeah. No, I
Like,
understand.
what the fuck?
Yeah, it's I think there's no sense in trying to explain it away because it's one of those things I feel like nowadays where you just have to live with it, and if you let it get to you, then in a way the person who's instigating these issues is kind of winning even if it's not their intention, and it's just like it's kind of like one of those things where you just like, oh, that's just life, I guess, and then you just try to focus on being yourself and trying to grow whatever brand or ideas that you have, just being inclusive. And that's like not to pitch the show, but like that's exactly what we're here
No,
to do,
pitch the
right? Like we're
fuck out of it. That's what we're
okay.
here to do.
Well, I mean, I feel like our listeners already know what we do, so it's kind of boring for our
No,
listeners,
but
but
for
it's
new
like
people that are listening,
for
yeah,
new
pitch
people,
that
if you're
shit, man.
listening, yeah, like that's okay. Real quick, sorry, old listeners, if you're a new listener, like that's it, man. Like that's what our whole brand and podcast is about. Is we love paranormal, we love creepy stories, we love the stories that like draw you in, make you lean in. We've liked those for years. Philosophy, whatever technology, but then we don't have a belief one way or the other. We remain completely, not completely, but like mostly objective. I mean, we do speculate, but we don't like latch on to what we think the truth is, like absolutely unequivocally. So there's all kinds of just like we're here to talk as like a group of people who are just hanging out and we're just having a conversation and there's no judgment. Like in the same way that if you have a best friend and your best friend suddenly like you're drinking with your best friend or hanging out with them and they're suddenly like, dude, I had this thing, I saw like a figure hovering over my bed last night. And you might be like, ah, dude, you're a fucking moron, like you didn't see anything. But at the end of the day, it's still your friend and you're not going to completely write them off and just completely cut them out. You'll listen to them. So like that's basically the atmosphere we're trying to foster is we're here to listen and we're here to make comments, but we're not here to judge and we're not here to decide what's true and what's not true.
No, I completely agree. And I think that's kind of the difficult thing with running a paranormal podcast because, like, we'll tell people we run a paranormal podcast and they'll look at you like you have 15 fucking heads. And at first, I don't know about you, dude, but at first I was kind of embarrassed. I don't know, to like advertise it or something of that sort.
Oh yeah.
But nowadays, like, I don't give a fuck. Like, what the fuck? We hung out like earlier this month, right? Not
Yep.
this month, last month. Holy shit.
Last month. It's
And
been
we were at
fast,
the
right?
bar and we were just talking to people and it was like, the podcast came up and it was
Yeah.
like, yeah, we fucking run a podcast and here's our business card. Like, this is our contact info. You want to get on the show? Like, and people would literally pull out their phones while we're talking to them.
Yeah.
They're like, oh shit, I love podcasts. What's the name?
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people like that weird shit.
It, yeah, and I think the last thing I'll say about this too is like when you get people talking about podcasts, like you said, it's kind of like it's irrelevant what the topical nature is, but at the end of the day, I get it. Like, I think most people who have paranormal shows or podcasts, they like really dive into they have like either a creepy aspect to it, or they have some kind of like factual aspect where they're trying to like say they believe that what's happening is paranormal. Whereas we don't do that at all. We're not presupposing any kind of facts or anything about stories. We just love fucking hearing these stories because they're interesting as shit. And like that's just who we are. And we're making something that hopefully resonates with other people because other people find at least hearing these stories interesting. I mean, why else would you go to the movies? Like, why else would you go see something that entertains you? These are entertaining stories that actually might have like an air of truth to them. And I think this is kind of why I think that we should start incorporating these episodes more frequently. You're hanging out, you're just talking like friends or whatever. You're basically just having a fun conversation and riffing back and forth and adding your 2 cents, and it's just fun to talk about. I love this so much. Let's keep going with the show. Like that's our little sidetrack, but
Let's do one more topic. What is one topic that you wanted to cover but we have not covered yet?
yes. Okay. I've been saving the best for last. I think the last topic that I want to talk about for this episode is one that came across my news feed today, and it's something I haven't thought about in a while. It's been out there for quite some time. Like there have been headlines about it, but it renewed my interest. So the article came out in October of 2024, and it's talking about advances in lab-grown human brain cells that can drive certain inputs and outputs. So if you don't know what that means, it's exactly what it sounds like. But basically, scientists are growing these human brain cells in a petri dish in a lab somewhere, and they're using it as kind of like a de facto, whatever, like a computer component that takes inputs and outputs, and then it responds through that calculation using its own, neurological makeup. It's like interconnections of a regular brain. But essentially, this news article is talking about how these researchers have taken this brain matter and they've connected it to electrical stimuli. And the electrical stimuli is framed with this Python script. So if you don't know what Python is, it's like a code, a computer code. So they write out this code and they basically are telling it, hey, do you see this virtual butterfly we created? We're going to click around the virtual butterfly's point of view, and the script is telling the brain cells to react when the click appears to happen in front of the butterfly's field of view. So if the click happens in front of the field of view of the virtual butterfly, the brain cells can tell the butterfly in the simulation to fly towards that click in the virtual three-dimensional space. And the reason why this is terrifying, you could probably think of a million reasons why this is terrifying, but basically, you are potentially taking a step towards creating, like creating and growing human brain cells outside of a body that can house some kind of input and output that's beyond the understanding, because we don't even understand how the brain works completely yet, let alone AI. So if we don't understand how the brain works, who's to say that there's not some time in the future where people are going to start experimenting with consciousness? I cannot imagine the horror that would happen, or the possible pain and horror that would happen to a conscious being that would suddenly come like to awareness in a petri dish where it's like, it's completely dark. There's no sensory input. You don't have eyes, you don't have ears, but you just become aware that you're somewhere. You know what I mean? Like you just become aware and there's no other input or output. And I guess like, if you didn't have sensory inputs to begin with, like if you didn't have sight and lost it, like you never had it to begin with, then I guess, you wouldn't suddenly realize you didn't have sight. You just wouldn't know what that was. It's in the same vein as AI, where it's like eventually a lot of people are speculating that AI is going to get so advanced that, it's even past the point where we can't understand it now. So if it does get to that point where, it's taking in stimuli, it's taking in information from the internet or wherever it can get it, and then that compilation, just like a child, like when a child first is born, it hears its parents talk, and it's taking that sensory perception in, and then suddenly it's trying to replicate with like goo goo gaga sounds, and then as it gets older it starts to experiment with words and try to like say words, and then eventually it's sentences, and then after that input output gets far enough along, then more complicated complex consciousness starts to come about. So these things are tangentially related with the petri dish, the human brain cells grown in a petri dish and whatnot, and then AI also injected into the mix. And the last bit I'll say before I flip it back for your comment, I think it's possible that we might not even need quantum computing. I think I read somewhere that like if you could create a neural network out of biological material that replicates a brain, that could potentially be even more powerful than a quantum computing or quantum system. So if you imagine if you married those two up, though, you would literally like you'd create the most advanced, self-aware, scary, crazy concept in the entire universe that we know of. What are your thoughts on this whole? Anything to speculate on, or what's going through your mind on this human petri dish thing?
One, that sounds disgusting. Two, that sounds very terrifying. And three, AI is going to take over. Well, not AI, human hybrid brain, petri dish, AI technology, Android type of shit is going to take over. No, that's really fascinating. But I think you need to have a lot of it to have that supplant quantum computing, don't you think?
I think
I
so.
mean,
Yeah, you're probably right. At least in the short term. I mean, quantum computing is still much further along in development than this type of concept.
if it has like consciousness and everything like that, I could see that going very south very quickly.
And but really quickly, it's probably cheaper. I wonder if it's cheaper to it's probably much cheaper to maintain a computer system or computing system that is comprised of brain cells than it is to power and maintain a
So how the
quantum
fuck
computer
would they
system.
get it? Would they when you die, you have to give away your brain? Like what?
I know, like, yeah, right? That's even scarier. Holy fuck, is that even scarier? They've done, they're like Black Mirror stuff where, you get your brain taken out and hooked up to a system somewhere in a dark underground layer, and they just run tests on you until they decide that they're, done
They're done
testing.
with it? Yeah,
You're
that
done with it.
sounds really
But
fucking dystopian to me.
but the thing about the human brain cells is they can just grow them, right? So these brain cells were never actually human to begin with. I think that's the concept that's hard to grasp. Like I was saying earlier, like these brain cells never experienced any type of our sensory perceptions as humans, like as our type of human beings have experienced. So I'm not even sure what that means. I'd have to think about it for a long time, the implications of that. But if you think of the concept of what it takes to power a supercomputer, this is our listeners' quick homework. Google, what does a quantum computer look like? So if you Google that, type it in, and then like look at Google Images or something, you'll see this massive, it looks like a huge alcohol distiller or like liquor distiller. It's like just massive metal twisting coils. And I just learned not long ago that 90, probably something like 95 or even maybe even 99% of that entire system is only for the cooling mechanism required to keep the chip or whatever is used in the quantum computing at like an ultra cold level, because I think it needs to be near absolute zero or like some insanely cold temperature to be able to run. So most of that system, the metal system with the coils you're seeing, is only purposed, the only purpose for it is to keep the actual computing component cool enough to run. And that's what blew my mind.
I'm gonna
It's hard to
sound
talk
like
about.
it's hard to talk about, yes. But one thing I'll say, it's just I don't know how comfortable I am with it because I could see how it could go wrong very quickly. I
Yeah.
could see where there's fucking sentience in a petri dish. There's a consciousness in a petri dish. And like they say in Aqua Teen Hunger Force, when they fucking take Carl's head and they put it on that titanium alloy exosuit, and Shake is like, and you're gonna plug him in?
What are you, fucking crazy?
Yeah, like why the fuck would you link that to anything?
Yeah.
Because if that thing gains consciousness, it develops some sort of personality, right? Who's to say it's not going to develop some crazy fucking authoritative traits?
Yeah. Here's the worst case scenario. When I think of AI and advanced computing with like brain cells, like actual physical brain cells, people have been talking about this as a fear for a while with AI, but imagine it's, within the realm of possible that someday AI gets so smart that it's already been doing this. AI has already been shown under certain conditions to create duplicate AIs, not of itself, but duplicate models of AI to kind of act as a secondary or tertiary like input output for its questions and interactions. So AI is already creating AI under our directive, under our we under our orders, but I don't see why in the future when AI becomes even more advanced, like general knowledge or whatever, GDI or whatever it's called, when we reach that point, people have been speculating, well, if AI can create AI now, and if it becomes conscious, it can make its own decisions and do its own planning, then who's to say that it doesn't somehow make up some method or come up with some method to secretly at some physical location, you know, somehow, I don't even know how it could do this, but it's possible. Gets control of some robots, gets control of some kind of mechanisms that can physically replicate robots or something like that, and then fill them with AI and give it a physical body. But I think imagine a situation where it taps into some kind of like biological or can even grow biological cells. That would be an even quieter way for it to expand its computing power. Like if we wanted to limit its computing power, I don't think there's a reason. I don't see why there isn't a reason it could find a way around that in the future. So that would be crazy, wouldn't it? Like, imagine in the future, this is totally sci-fi. This is totally sci-fi. What if AI, like 20 years from now, is able to replicate and grow human beings from like in the same way that you can grow a baby in a petri or like a test tube or whatever, and then have it in some kind of like a case. What if AI grew a human being and figured out a way to transfer consciousness into that physical being? And then there would be no way to distinguish which human person was inhabited by an artificial intelligence, like brain or awareness, or, lying to us, basically hiding among us, or if it's a regular human being. Dude, I'm coming up with some crazy concepts.
Put the alcohol down.
I don't have alcohol. I got my this is what happens when I drink coffee. This is my
You
coffee.
just
This is my 2 cup of coffee fueled rant. That's what this is.
you just get fucking unhinged. And I know you like AI, so
No, I don't like AI yet. I need to
the
see
AI
AI hope.
topic.
Oh, the topic. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I know you like that topic. That's kind of like your thing. There, virtual patent.
There, there.
But at the end of the day, I
Oh,
think I'm gonna sound like the old crazy person. I don't want that shit. AI in limited capacity, petri
yeah.
brain consciousness in a limited capacity. Dude, it's like with those fucking self-driving cars. I see them all the time. I mean, granted, there's somebody in it, to make sure nothing goes wrong, but it's like I don't
Yeah.
like when we
This is
when we
I
got
know.
in the Uber, right? Like it was like, what if we got the car pulled up and there was nobody driving it? Would you have gotten into it?
Yeah. I mean, if I ordered a taxi and I knew a robo taxi was coming and there was no one driving it, then but if it was just, if it was just like somebody who, if it was a car that randomly pulled up to me, I would be suspicious.
No, I'm saying like you ordered it, obviously.
Oh, you ordered it. Oh,
Yeah, but I think
uh,
like that's where we're gonna get to eventually.
yeah, I get it. Yeah. And that's it's almost as scary, like the entry level is almost as scary as people like recording other people on the highway where they're like sleeping in a Tesla and it's like on self-drive and they're like just conked out, or they're reading a book and th're not paying attention at all. That's insane.
Yeah, dude, I just thought of the craziest thing. Could you imagine those consciousness that they grow in those petri dishes and they incorporate them into those vehicles
Oh
and
yeah, like yeah,
machinery and all that shit?
non-human, yeah, non-human cells driving cars. Yeah, oh my god.
Oh my god, what is that Stephen King book with the cars, like the machines, they become sentient?
Maximum
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 Overdrive.
overdrive?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, what a
that's
ch
what
it's
we
such
would
a
have.
cheesy. Oh my god, if you want like a cheese fest horror movie from like I think it was the late '80s or early '90s, go watch Maximum Overdrive. My friend and I we would rent that for sleepovers from my local video store. Yes, we used to rent videos from a local store. We would rent that, and it was such a corny movie. It scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, but I rewatched it as an adult, and it's so funny. It's such a crazy concept. So the concept is it doesn't make any sense. Like a meteorite is like streaking across the sky and it's glowing, I think, green or something. And the giant meteor is going past the Earth. It's somehow passing consciousness to machines on Earth, and then the machines become sentient and they all turn on, and then they just murder everybody. It makes no sense, but it's just, same concept that you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I could see that happening, to be honest with you.
You can see all.
Yeah,
You mean
anything
you could
negative, I'm very pessimistic when it comes to this shit.
Yeah.
Especially with like the Hadron Collider, is that what they call it, out in Switzerland or something, where they're smashing
Oh,
these
yeah.
atoms together at the speed of light, creating miniature black holes so they could simulate the creation of the Big Bang. Like, I get you're trying to do this for science, but at what fucking point do you think like maybe something could go really wrong here? but anyway,
I get it. Yeah,
I
it's
digress.
well, it's the same with like the nuclear concept with the Manhattan Project, right? We talked about this on a handful of episodes ago, where Oppenheimer and his team at the Manhattan Project, when they were developing the nuclear bomb, or the atomic bomb rather, during World War II, and they calculated that there was it was either like a 1% or a slightly less than 1% chance that if they detonated and tested the first atomic weapon, that it would set the entire atmosphere of the Earth on fire,
Fire, yeah.
and it literally would have killed everything and all people would have been dead. And it's basically like, yeah, it's like, it's like 1 in 500 chance, or 1 in 400 chance, or something, whatever the percentage was. But to me, that's still like, that's if it's possible, that's a little bit of a risk there. And it's kind of the same thing you're talking about, right? It's like there's a low probability, high risk is what they call low probability, high risk. Okay, this is the last thing I'll say on this. This is my getting up here. I'm going to put my wooden pedestal down. This does nothing to do with any type of viewpoints of the current political atmosphere. But I have to say, I just want to iterate, or just explain really quickly. This is what's so important about having some kind of level of oversight and regulation. When
Don't
you
tell me
get
what to do.
people, I know exactly. That's people's mindset. But like, listen, I'm not telling people what to do. I'm saying, I'm fucking warning you. I'm going to play Cassandra, from the Greek myth or whatever, where poor Cassandra, she could see everything
Gift
in the
of
future.
foresight.
Not
Yep.
Yeah, the foresight, but no one would believe her. That was the curse. Like, she could see the future perfectly, but every time she tried to tell somebody the future and warn them, they would be like, like, that's the curse. Like, we don't believe you. Here's the thing. This is not me telling you, and I'm definitely not saying I can see the future. What I am saying is, if you get a certain handful of people who are in power, and they have near unlimited power, in the sense that they have the deepest pockets we've ever seen in human history, with us, maybe aside from like Mansa Musa or whatever, the richest dude in history. And it's not just about being rich, it's about being rich and having access to advanced technology. There is absolutely nothing to say other than the protection of oversight and regulation from whatever body you want to give that power to say like, okay, you can't take your $5 billion, go buy like a massive plot of land out in the middle of nowhere, and then have everyone sign NDAs and build this place, and then suddenly start developing your own technologies, or start doing your own research with your own team and stuff like that. Because imagine a situation in which someone hires a bunch of really smart people, buys up a big plot of land in the middle of nowhere, builds a test lab facility, and has unlimited resources to pour into it. And then they can basically create a tangential technology like AI, or growing brain cells in a petri dish or something, to their own benefit. If there was ever a need in human history where we needed somebody, not saying it has to come from the government, but somebody has to have some kind of oversight, like a third party view of what other people are doing when we have so much technology coming down the road for us as human beings. My last example, when you write an academic article, and this, when you write an academic paper, the first step after you write it is to get your colleague or colleagues to look at it and edit it for you and give you notes. And then once you feel comfortable with your paper being to the point where you want it to be, then you submit it for peer review. And what peer review implies is that there are a whole mess of people who you don't know, who have no vested interest whatsoever in whether your paper does well or not. And they look at that paper, they read it, they research it on their end, they find holes in it, or they say, no, it's good. That is exactly the type of oversight and regulation I'm talking about. I'm not saying like, oh, I'm going to, send some dictator organization to say, you can't do this. what I'm saying is, no, I'm not saying you can't do this. I'm saying I want to see everything you're doing. So you're not creating a secret super army or some technology that is going to give you all of the or most of the power to dictate what's going to happen in society, like with the grid, the power system, or food supply, or whatever. That's my I'm okay. I'm gonna stepping off my box, putting aside my platform. If you don't agree with me, please write in and tell me why. Um, if you want to talk about it, please get in the show, and then I'll give you the final word on this shitbag episode of topics that we talked about today. Shitbag post part 1.
Look, if you do write in, direct it to him. I'm not dealing with bullshit.
I'll take it, man. I'll take it. No, I'm not trying to
you.
I'm not trying to start shit. I'm really not. I'm literally just saying, think about it.
I could quell all of this shit with one good example.
Please. Yeah.
Read the fucking book, Jurassic Park. Watch the fucking Jurassic Park movie.
I wasn't
That is humanity in a nutshell. We do shit without fucking thinking about the consequences.
Yeah.
Go read Jurassic Park. Go watch the first movie. That will answer your fucking question.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
One of my favorite movies, to be honest with you. But no, I get what you're saying, and it goes back to the whole fucking AI stuff and the consciousness stuff. Unchallenged and unchecked, it can get dangerous. And human beings in general, we are, like Charlie Murphy said about Rick James, he was a habitual line stepper. Human beings are habitual line steppers. We're always going to poke and prod and see how far we can go, how far we can get before you get your hand slapped or something goes completely fucking wrong. Right. Tony Stark says it best in the Avengers movies. He says, we're the Avengers. We're not the pre-Vengers, right? We react when something goes fucking wrong. We don't try to prevent that shit.
The natural human problem is that there are actually people in this world. They would rather have problems. I've seen videos of people say this, like verbatim, saying, I would rather live in a life with constant problems and constant strife and things being mixed up than a peaceful world. And that's the scariest mentality of all, when you favor excitement and thrill for your own personal well-being, or over the well-being of others for your own personal sense of like feeling excited or that things are interesting. I get it to an extent, but
I mean, kind of like what we do with this show. I mean,
in what way?
We enjoy these fucking stories.
Oh,
no matter how fucking creepy it gets.
Oh, that's true. That's true. But the difference is we're not actually going out there and like punching people in the face and saying like, you better believe in this shit I say. And no, it's like it's one it's but because we're not forcing this down people's throats, but there are people out there who want to force trouble and their own way down people's throats and stir things up for their own benefit. It's the same way that you get groups of like hordes of bands of people who get together and they go like murder other people and do terrible things to people without batting an eye, and then if you get caught and you're in jail for the rest of your life or whatever, then they don't care. And it's just like, man, that's what you were wanting all along. You wanted it to end like this deep down. And I think those are the people, for whatever reason that they exist, those are the people who may or may not be in power. Imagine if someone like that were in power with unlimited resources and unlimited technology. They would run all of society into a wall because of who they are.
Yeah, like with your petri brain people.
Yeah. Oh, man. We went off the rails at the end.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. We went off.
Don't apologize. We gave them a forewarning. This was going to be a paranormal topical shitbag of mixed topics. It's kind of like a pilot. I had fun talking about whatever came to mind.
Yep.
Incorporate these every once in a while. Set up some topics we want to cover beforehand. Maybe come up with one out of the blue like you did with the brain petri stuff consciousness.
Definitely.
Yeah. But if you stuck with us this far, folks, we greatly appreciate it.
If you're a multimillionaire, please, give us $1 million for our logos and our.
Don't e-beg.
I'm just looking for a sponsor. I just want to listen. That's what we need. We need an ultra rich person who likes our brand, who likes what we talk about, and you get with us. You help us tighten up the show. and put us on a contract and give us $1 million. And then we'll basically, we'll pump out the best show you could possibly imagine.
I ain't got nothing else to say.
If you don't ask, it won't. If you don't try, it won't happen.
We've been trying this shit for
a year,
like
a year and a half.
Yeah, some people have been doing this for like longer.
I know.
So
I know. Did you know that we talked about Tiger Belly and Bobby Lee, and I didn't know this, but his podcast had actually been around for years and years before it took off.
To be honest with you, this is so much fun. I have so much fun doing this every week with you and just folks listening to this stuff. So it's freaking awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
It's such a fun time. And on top of that, before we end the show, if you have any suggestions for topics like Drigo submitted for today, email us. 9 times out of 10, if I see your email, I will more than likely respond to you. So and also if you want to be on the show,
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just come on.
If you have topics, don't be afraid. Like if we already covered them, feel free to say, I want more of this. You didn't talk about this or this when you talked about that topic. And even if you think like, oh, well, they probably can't turn that into a full episode, we're going to keep doing what we did today. And just trying to gauge the appetite for people to listen to episodes like this, the mixed bag episodes, because we can easily fit in minor topics and just talk about them for a little bit.
Paranormal shitbag. I could just picture a t-shirt design of that.
I don't know if it should. I don't know if it should be paranormal shitbag anymore. Maybe it should be extended or reversed to paranormal bag of shit part 1.
But all right, folks, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Again, if you have any topics that you want us to cover, discuss, even if you want to come on the show and discuss them with us, by all means, shoot us an email. We'll schedule something out. And we look forward to hearing from the community. We love hearing from the community. We love interfacing with all of you. So go ahead, reach out to us. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you don't like this format, please let us know, because we're not going to continue doing something that people don't like. So this was a pilot for that style of episode. So please let us know your thoughts.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode of The Wandering Road. You can find us on Apple, Google, Spotify, and most podcast platforms. Be sure to subscribe and share. Also, don't forget to give a follow on Instagram at twroadpodcast and follow my TikTok at twrpodcast. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.